Good morning, y'all. It's really good to be here this morning. It's good to see so many beautiful faces out there. And it's funny, the talk title for this week is Listening Beyond the Noise of the World. And so that song, that Jack Fowler song, really is perfect for that. And, listening beyond the noise of the world is not something most of us are good at doing. We, especially now where there's so much that's rushing at us every moment of every day. It's hard to tune out. It's hard to set your phone down. And as the Buddhist monks call it, your lover. It's hard to set our lovers down, right? We want to have them and hold them near to us at every moment. And so today, as we talk about this topic, I want to start with some questions. And just take a moment to think, when was the last time you truly, deeply gave all your attention to another human being? Were fully present, fully available to them without trying to fix or change them? And when was the last time you felt someone really devoted all their attention to you? That they were fully present, fully available to you without trying to fix or change you? And when was the last time you were fully present and fully available to yourself without trying to fix or change anything? How often do we ever get that experience of either truly being heard or truly hearing somebody else or ourselves? Not often. And for many people, that's all they want. They don't want to be changed. They don't want advice. They don't want to be told what to do. They just want to be heard. And so to truly listen beyond the noise of the world requires that we are fully present in this moment. I really thought about this yesterday. We were walking our dog, and there's a little park near our house. And she's not very fond of other dogs. She's okay unless they come up to her. And then she will do the border collie thing. She will grab them by the neck, nip them, and flip them over. Just like she would do with a recalcitrant sheep, right? So we're walking, and we try to keep a distance. And we saw a woman coming into the park with her dog, and we kept trying to get her attention, but she was like this. She couldn't pay attention to the dog, she couldn't pay attention to the world around her, didn't see us because she was so focused on her phone. It was a glorious day, there were birds, it was beautiful, it was warm, and she couldn't see anything but her phone. And I think of how often we do that. We tune out the world, or we think we are, by focusing so closely, but we're not really tuning anything out or listening in. We're distracting ourselves. And so again, to listen beyond the noise means being fully present. And so again, all these things distract us. Politics, social media, television, the headlines, gossip, right? Prayerfully discussing other people's lives. So we find it really hard to simply be. We're so busy being someplace else. We can't be here. And I suspect that many of you listening to me right now aren't here. You're not thinking about what I'm saying. You're thinking about your shopping list, your to-dos, a fight you had with somebody, why the carpet is rough in that spot, why the hell does she keep droning on and on, right? All of these things other than being right here, right now. And to be fully present requires silence. And silence is hard. And the silence I'm talking about is not the absence of sound. Rather, it's the presence of an inward listening awareness, an attunement of our mind's ear, and an orientation of our spirit toward a certain inner stillness. And just as that outer stillness is hard, inner stillness is hard. Because paradoxically, entering the silence often means paying attention to what is around us without our normal distractions. So experiencing the silence means we have to stop, take a break, be attuned to what is rather than to our worries, hopes, fears, and dreams. We have to turn the volume down on our inner voices, the noises in our head. For most of us, that isn't easy. We don't want to deal with those voices, the ones that make us question ourselves, the voices that tell us we aren't worthy, we aren't good enough. Those voices that are instilled in us through our families, our religious upbringing, the culture we're raised in. They tell us who is worthy of care and who isn't, who is valuable and who isn't. So we distract ourselves again because we don't want to deal with those voices in our head. We use spiritual bypassing, and we deny who we are. And let me be clear. The silence I'm talking about is not an external silence. It doesn't mean being silent in the face of injustice. It doesn't mean not speaking up for things in the world. Rather, it's a silence that allows us to get in touch with that still small voice, the voice of the divine. It's a silence that allows us to be one with all that is. When we take that step back, when we quiet the incessant roar of our worries, fears, and desires, we begin hearing the voice of the one. We can attune to something other than all of that stuff happening. And Ernest Holmes writes about this when he writes, I am one, as we get silent, we can remember that I am one with all people, with all things, with all life. As I listen in the silence, the voice of all humanity speaks to me and answers the love I hold out to it. And those of you who know me know that I'm a big fan of Thich Nhat Hanh, this idea of interbeing, that we all inter-are, that we're all made up of elements that are not us. And so everything is not the thing, it's everything else that exists. So as I listen in the silence, I remember that I'm one with all things. Right? And so Holmes goes on to write, we should learn to trust life. Why not accept this and begin to live? No one need prepare to meet their God. God is meeting us every day and each hour in the day. We meet the divine in the rising sun, in the flowing stream, in the budding rose, in the joy of friendship and love, and in the silence of our own soul. And I would add that we meet the divine in everything, in those we love and those we don't love so much, in the things we enjoy and the things we don't enjoy. If it's all God, then everything is divine. And so he goes on to say, when we meet each other, do we not feel that subtle presence which flows through all things and gives light and color to our everyday experience? In our own souls, in the silent processes of thought and understanding, do we not sense another presence? There is something divine about us which we have overlooked. There is more to us than we realize. Yet how do we get there? How do we find the silence that allows us to feel one with all? It can be confusing because different teachers, different traditions teach that silence can only be found by doing certain things, whether it's through meditating a certain way, fasting, a certain kind of prayer or ritual. And we have these notions, right, about what it means to be a good meditator, to all these things we have to do. And there's a story that's told about a 20th century Buddhist teacher named Ajahn Chah. And he says that there was a student who came to him, very eager to learn to meditate, came to his monastery and wanted that silence that comes with contemplation. And yet at that time of year outside the monastery, there was a celebration. And so there were lots and lots of people chanting and setting off firecrackers and making lots of noise. And the student came to Ajahn Chah and said, "Master, I can't meditate. The noise is bothering me." And the master looked at him and said, "No, you are bothering the noise." And so what is our perspective about how we get quiet in the world? And again, Ernest Holmes writes that silence is used oftener and is perhaps less understood than any other word in the terminology of the metaphysician. There is no place we must go for the silence. There is no particular posture we must assume. There is no formula we must repeat. We enter into this inner silence by whatever route we may. Some people live in such conscious unity with good that instantly they can turn within and direct the avenues they wish the good to take. Others need to approach by prayer, by singing, by reading a verse from the Bible, by repeating an inspirational poem. If we know that the divine is forever right where we are, we shall not be reaching out in every direction for it. We enter the inner chamber of our mind and close the door on all discord and confusion and commune with our God, our spiritual consciousness. The silence is our communion with spirit, our awareness of our unity with good. And so again, how do we do that? Because silence is not a function of what we often think of as silence. As I said earlier, we don't really triumph in the pursuit of silence in the strict sense of the word until we cease to exist, until we're not here any longer. The pursuit of silence in life is fated to be endless and imperfect, and that's what draws us ever inward. And I think silence in the end is love. It's the willingness to be who we are fully, knowing we are the most beloved of God. And when we can be silent, when we can be that place when someone else can share fully who they are as a complex, messy human being, that is the epitome of love. That silence is because being present with another with all your heart and mind is the greatest gift you can give. And if you think about it, silence is necessary for communication. It's not the words that let us know what somebody's saying, it's the space in between them. Because it's the silence in between that lets us make out discrete words. And in sign language, too, there's a space between words. And if you've ever traveled someplace where you don't know the language at all, and it's not at all similar to the language you grew up speaking, you can't even hear the spaces between words. You don't know the cadence or the rhythm of the language, and so it just sounds like one uninterrupted string of gibberish. I've had this experience both in Israel and in Nepal where I didn't even understand anything because it just sounded like nonsense. And as I listened slowly, I began to hear that there were indeed pauses. And so it's those pauses that give us communication, that space. So how do we cultivate silence? I think the first step really is slowing down. We live in a world that can't handle silence. We want everything to happen quickly. Don't know something? Google it. Want to hear a song? Spotify it. Want to get in touch with somebody? Text or IM them. Want a book? Download it. Right? I'm old enough to remember that when I wanted to learn something, I had to go to the library. And there was no CD-ROM. I had to go to the library, and there were card catalogs. I had to open them up and pull out the 3x5 cards and say, it's on this aisle, and go find it. And the beauty of that, too, is I might find not just that book, but there were lots of other things. And then I had to check the book out and read it. There was no Cliff Notes. There was no Chat GPT to tell me what I should know about the book. I had to actually do the work. And so when we slow down, we can absorb more. We can be more present. Right? There's a virtue in patience, in not insisting everything happen right now. And so cultivating silence requires patience. I know some of you don't like that word. But patience is a skill, right? It's like any other skill, and we can cultivate it. But the best time to cultivate patience is not when we're already over the edge. We cultivate it slowly when we're not in a situation that is fraught. We cultivate it by not picking up our phone first thing in the morning, by checking for the weather, by going outside, rather than looking at 5 different weather apps, right? By stopping before you say something when you're having a conversation. By walking somewhere instead of driving. All these ways you can cultivate patience. By when you're waiting in line, don't pick up your phone. You know, I was waiting for a mammogram the other day, and there's a room full of women all wearing these gowns that don't fit anybody. One size fits nobody, right? So they're trying to pull their bits together. And many of the people were just on their phones, but there were a few of us who were just sitting there. And what happened is we started having this lovely conversation, which I remember used to happen before everyone was on their phones. So put your phone down, right? Another way to cultivate patience is to recharge your battery each day in whatever way works for you. It might be sleeping, walking, reading, hugging a tree. So as I said, cultivating the ability to wait. So when you're waiting, just wait. Notice your environment. Notice what happens in your body and mind if you just try to wait without doing anything. Notice how antsy you get, how itchy you feel if you're just waiting. If you have a problem, resist the urge to look up the answer. Try to figure it out. And if you can't, ask somebody else for help. It's also important to question your impatience. Don't just scold yourself for your own impatience. It could be a sign that something needs attention. Interrogate where that impatience is coming from and examine the source, whether it's overload, lack of sleep, or a deeper situation. Often we get impatient and irritable with ourselves because there's something underneath that needs to be heard or felt or sensed, but we don't want to deal with it. When we respond to these signals with curiosity and compassion instead of shame, we can create more space between trigger and response. And creating more space helps us cultivate silence. When we can become comfortable with the space between sounds, the space between thoughts, we can live more fully, be more fully present with others and with ourselves. And this in turn leaves us more open to experiencing the divinity inherent in all. So this week, I invite you to notice how often you can't pay attention to the world because of the roar in your head. How often you can't be with somebody else because you're so busy thinking about yourself or your response or something else. Stop right now and think, what are you thinking about right now? Are you thinking about what I'm saying, or are you somewhere else completely? No judgment, but just notice how often that happens in the day. Listen to somebody without trying to fix, without interrupting, without giving advice. Try just being. Turn off your phone. Leave social media behind. Turn off the music, the TV, the radio, Alexa, and notice the world around you. And as I was writing this talk, I was sitting on my bed in my bedroom with the window open. It was beautiful. And as I was writing, I heard cardinals and crows and blue jays and robins, titmice, chickadees, and other birds whose names I don't know. I heard the leaves in the wind. I heard the rooster next door crowing. And I heard the hens clucking. I heard the sound of children's voices, a motorcycle in the distance. I smelled the grass and the lilacs. I noticed the green of spring. All of that because I took a moment to simply look up and be present with what was. Remember, you are the most beloved of the divine. There's nothing you have to do to earn that. There's nowhere you have to go to get that. You don't have to be anybody else. You just have to be you. There's a story of a Hasidic rabbi who died and went to heaven and said to God, I feel so bad. I spent all this time and I was nobody great. I wanted to be somebody great. And God looked at him and said, you just had to be yourself. So we get so caught up in thinking that we have to make a difference in the world. We have to be somebody big, but just being yourself, just having that moment of silence, of grace with another human being or with yourself can change the world in ways we don't even know. You don't know when your listening ear, your kindness could save someone else's life. So I invite you this week to just be. And I want to leave you with one of my favorite poems. It's a reminder of the healing power of nature, of allowing ourselves to simply be and to understand we are part of the grand adventure of the universe. And I'm partial to this poem because for me, the place where I find silence, the place where I remember divinity is in nature. And I especially love hugging trees. There's something to me about the bark of a tree that's magical. And for me, my favorite trees are the redwoods in California, probably because that's where I grew up. So this is called The Peace of Wild Things by Wendell Berry. When despair for the world grows in me, and I wake in the night at the least sound, in fear of what my life and my children's lives may be, I go and lie down, where the wood drake rests in his beauty on the water, and the great heron feeds. I come into the peace of wild things, who do not tax their lives with forethought of grief. I come into the presence of still water, and I feel above me the day-blind stars waiting with their light. For a time, I rest in the grace of the world, and am free. Let's go into prayer. So I just take that moment again to enter into the stillness that is always present. To remind myself that there is nothing but it. But there is nothing but that one life, that one universal cosmic isness that is in, through, and as everything. There is no place it is not. And that each of us is part of that divine essence. That we are one with one and one with all, that there is no separation. And in this moment, I know that one, that life, as peace, as joy, as beauty, as creativity, as love, as wholeness, knowing that whatever is the truth of the one is the truth of me, the truth of each beloved hearing my voice. And so knowing that, I speak this word. I speak this word for this community. Knowing that this moment is a holy moment. This moment is a divine moment. That we gather here, we are here in love and as love, that there is nothing but that infinite silence in which the divine sings, and that every moment the divine sings each of us alive, that still small voice whispers and says, yes, my beloved, yes. Yes, my beloved, yes. There is nothing beyond your doing, nothing beyond your knowing. And that is the truth for each of us, that we indeed are magnificent, we are holy, we are sacred beings, and that we come here simply to be who we are and to share that with one another. And so I know that for each of us and for this community, I know that goodness and grace. And so knowing this, speaking my word, I simply give thanks. And I release it into that perfect action of the law, knowing it is so. And so it is.